So I've gone through lots of different diets and things like that to support my own health, to try to lose weight. And that's happened over the course of the last 10 years. And I wound up finding out that I had orthorexia, which is like a commitment to healthy eating that led to essentially not eating and like starvation for me. But what I learned after embarking on my recovery journey and intuitive eating, which had some concepts that were not the healthiest, like avoiding exercise and always eating a minimum amount of calories, even if you're not hungry for it. I discovered pro-metabolic eating, which was exactly why I embarked on intuitive eating in the first place, was because I learned that my body was showing symptoms of a low metabolism. I was losing hair, I was stressed, I always had cold hands and feet, and this was something that physiologically I needed. So when I found out about the science, I knew that I had to recover. I had to start eating enough, even if it meant that I couldn't keep like the body I had in mind. But pro-metabolic eating and the lifestyle makes it so you can have health goals basically, and you can also achieve an optimal state for your insides, for your metabolism, not just trying to achieve some like obscure picture of health. So that means like increasing your carbs, eating enough carbs via like fruit, starches, and having enough protein as well, which I didn't realize I wasn't getting nearly enough of. But for me, I had gained weight from the intuitive eating and eating disorder recovery from some of the black and white concepts that I incorporated because I thought I had to do it to get well again. But once I started incorporating like some gentle nutrition tactics from the pro-metabolic field, like increasing my carbs, I noticed like almost overnight my waistline was slightly leaning out, like my liver area, because my body was running on that respiratory carb fuel rather than fat. Because in my nutrition training, we were taught to prioritize fat, and like fat was the best thing, and if you can go keto, that's the best. But I tried keto, and that's actually what led to my eating disorder eventually, because it caused me to have so many issues digesting food, to where I could barely eat anything. So clearly that wasn't the answer for me, and it actually caused problems. But when you have that belief of like always increasing your amount of fat, it's so easy to get a lot of fat and not realize it. So that's why tracking your intake can be really helpful. And when I made a point of being mindful of that and having a point of actually trying to get my carbs to like 40, 45, 50%, that's when I started needing less calories, and my body temperature, which is a reflection of your metabolism, actually started to go up despite having less calories. So when I embarked on the intuitive eating and orthorexia recovery journey, the point was to increase my metabolism, because I learned from some people in the field like Matt Stone or Kayla Kotecki, Stephanie Buttermore, how it's important to eat enough to heal things like amenorrhea or a low metabolism. And the reason is because your body temperature can be so low that your body isn't fulfilling those needs. It's not in a state of abundance. But I was really happy to find out that pro-metabolic eating addresses that. So you can have health goals and still address that. And then further down the road, I discovered a trainer who is in the pro-metabolic field, Libby Westcomb, and I'm really glad I did, because even in the pro-metabolic field, there's some dogma around being afraid of hard exercise, which you shouldn't have to be. It's all about balance. As long as you're restoring what you burn and making sure that you're eating enough food and allowing yourself rest when you need it, then it's okay to push yourself. It's just about balance and where you are. Like, I couldn't have probably pushed myself as much as I do now further back, like before I discovered the metabolic healing, because the pro-metabolic diet and things like that actually make it so your body can handle those things by increasing the parasympathetic or like the rest and recovery state, which is what I was trying to accomplish unknowingly all along when I was first trying to recover. So I've lost weight pretty easily. I keep my carbs around, like I said, 45%. I found that I do best with that of my overall energy intake. And then my protein, like 18% at least. So like 80 to 100 grams minimum per day. And that will help maintain your lean mass if you're losing weight. So your muscle, it will protect. And that's another thing that I wish I would have known a long time ago, because like when I discovered the whole eating disorder issue, I discovered the Minnesota starvation study, which was done by Ansel Keys. And it showed that people who lost weight in this study, by restricting to amount of calories that isn't too uncommon in our current day, like men were restricted to like 13 to 1800 calories were counted a little differently back then, so it's kind of hard to compare, but in that range. Some say it was around 1800, but I don't want to act like it's perfectly accurate because I'm not really sure. But regardless, there are definitely men out there who eat that much regularly and are even told to. But anyway, they found that people who did that lost lean mass, which included like their blood volume, their heart volume, and like skeletal tissue and like tissue in their vital organs. And these people were not overweight whatsoever. They were perfectly healthy. And that was scary for me because I had like nervous system issues. I had severe neuropathy. I was losing my balance at one point. My body was breaking down. I had heart issues, all kinds of stuff. And I realized that it's probably because of my restriction eventually. But protein preserves your lean mass. So I'm not saying you should like severely restrict and it's going to be okay to like drastically cut your calories. But if you are someone who needs or wants to lose weight, you know that that's a way to preserve it. Well, you can do both. You can reduce your calories and still preserve your lean mass. It's just really important to keep protein in mind. Of course, when you get to a certain level of restriction and deprivation, it doesn't matter your macronutrient intake because calories are the basic energy that the body needs, and my body definitely needed to heal with calories. But if I would have known in the first place how important altering things for the metabolism was in increasing your carbs, then I probably wouldn't have gained weight in the first place. Of course, I was healing like a mental eating disorder issue, so it's important to like undo the food rules and things like that and teach my body that it's okay to eat as much as it was hungry for, and it's okay to eat and things like that without rules. So it's a good thing that I did that, but I just wish it would have been more balanced because there was a lot of black and white thinking in the recovery community. And I think there are a lot of people coming from the recovery community into the pro-metabolic realm as well. And there's some dogma there, like I said, fear of hard exercise. They tend to say that like you just need to walk and like that's all you need to do. And that's a belief that I had for like the last 10 years, that pretty much walking is really all you need. It's what we did like ancestrally, blah, blah, blah. And again, I think if I knew like the importance of muscle and the benefits of weightlifting, I may have never fallen into orthorexia the way that I did. And also if I would have realized the importance of that balance, Libby Westcombe calls it like G-flux, which is like the balance of burning versus like taxing your body or like stressing it, and like how that is, having both, like plenty of both, is actually the healthiest. So if I would have known that, then I don't think I would have felt as much need to be orthorexic, because I barely worked out back then because I couldn't handle it because I was eating so little. You know, we all hear how nutrition is the most important part of losing weight and getting the right physique, but I think when we say that, sometimes we leave the weightlifting and the physical fitness by the wayside, which is one of the best ways to avoid diseases that come with aging, like Alzheimer's, they've found, and regulate blood sugar and things like that. Like the muscles are a place where your blood sugar will go when you need to lower it, which is really important for overall health, of course. So Yeah, those are some things that I learned. And also, fiber is another stigmatized thing in the pro metabolic space because they say that basically whole grains are not necessary, not helpful, and even damaging to the metabolism, because they can create endotoxin, which is like a bad product that can be created in your digestion. And again, I think that tends to happen when people don't have an optimal metabolism, just like I was mentioning I did when I went through the ketogenic diet and I could barely digest. So when you have like a robust body and metabolism, you can handle those things just like we were meant to. I don't think whole grains were made to be exclusively refined and only eaten that way myself. But ancestrally, the best way to prepare grains and nuts and seeds, which are all things that are shunned in the pro-metabolic space, like Weston Price found that the healthiest tribes who are still carrying on the ancestral traditions today and have like perfect teeth and stuff despite like not brushing their teeth or having modern dentistry, they all soaked, sprouted, or fermented their grains, nuts, and seeds and legumes like beans. So that actually helps digest the anti-nutrients like phytates for you. So that is a nuance that isn't talked about often in the pro-metabolic field. It's just black and white, like whole grains are bad, which is going to make people not have enough fiber a lot of times. And things like beans are really important for soluble fiber for binding toxins, and that's extremely important in our day and age to bind toxins so they're not recirculated, because the gallbladder will reuse the toxic bile if it's not bound with something like fiber regularly. And yeah, also vegetables aren't really appreciated in the pro-metabolic field other than like cucumber, squash, root vegetables, which a lot of times people want variety. They're not going to get enough fiber if they're just eating those things. So it can be really helpful for weight loss to have more fiber, obviously. Like it's going to clean out your gut, which can hold on to waste and weight. So like Libby Westcombe, the trainer, said that some of the people that she worked with found that they lost a few pounds just from incorporating more fiber. And that's something that you want to do slowly. You don't want to just have a bunch because that could slow things down digestively, but you want to slowly let your body adapt if you've had low quantities of fiber, because things like orange juice are exalted in like the pro-metabolic field, but they're lacking fiber. But people find these like popular things that are promoted by like the influencers as superfoods, which they do have their benefits, but they forget about the basics. And that's the thing. We just need to remember the basics and the way that your body is responding first and foremost. Like for me, I wanted to increase my carbs when I started having that positive response of like my liver area leaning out and losing like weight in my stomach almost immediately. But after a certain point, when I got my carbs too high, I noticed I was super hungry, and I kind of had to have less whole foods in order to like get that number right, like having isolated protein like non-fat yogurt and whey protein, and not having like normal foods in their natural state. So it's funny that when that happened, when it was less natural, I was also getting super hungry because my body wasn't satisfied with that amount of fat. Fat is important for satiation and blood sugar regulation. So that was a sign for my body. And I had to like back it up with like research online first. But I should have known like, it's okay. Some people's bodies just need that. And really, we do need a certain amount of fat, of course, for hormone regulation and things like that. And I would never recommend going too low, but even the 50% carbs, like for me, it wasn't ideal. So those are just some things I've learned. Hopefully this wasn't too all over the place and it can be helpful, but let me know if you have any questions or if you have any experiences like the ones that I've mentioned, because I'm very curious.